So, after Full Gear, with Joe surprisingly winning the belt and Swerve returning and obviously the Hook turn, I just want to talk about where do we go from here for the AEW main event scene. I still cannot believe that Joe is now the champ again, and I'm so happy about that. As Hangman's reign, I'm so glad it happened. People are complaining. I don't really see the negative to it. I think this is where it really gets interesting. And to be honest, the obvious question is who beats Joe, and obviously what happens with Swerve and Hangman. Hangman winning that belt back isn't out the question, right? Like, we gotta kind of acknowledge that. So, for people who are upset about the reign being short, one, there's not a problem with that. Long reigns are too common, so, it's kind of good to get back to basics. And two, the reign wasn't bad. The reign was genuinely not bad. If you think that, I don't know how you believe that personally. How does it go? I mean, I love that now Joe is essentially a leader of an army, not just a group, an army. Like, you got the Ops Dojo, which is massive. And he's got three generals. They're all great generals in terms of, like, notoriety, right? Like, Hobbs and Shibata are both... Shibata and Hobbs are going to be so good. They have been as healed. And Hook, this is the most make or break for Hook, right? So, it's going to be interesting to see. And there probably might be a few more people who join the Ops. You never know. It's not out the question. I hope there's a lot of just additions in the sense of it doesn't have to be a long-term thing, but just the Ops in general. It's a really interesting scenario. I do see it as like an army, and I love that. Swerve and Hangman teaming up is mental considering where we was last year, but I just think that's great. I don't think it'll be perfect. I think Dynamite this week's going to be really interesting, obviously. But I think they're going to be an alliance, and then they'll grow to have more respect. I don't think they'll ever be friends. I think Ospreay not being there is huge too. I think that'll get a little bit of an acknowledgement. I hope it does. Eddie Kingston's a big major part too, because Hook hasn't just, betrayed Hangman. He's betrayed Eddie at this point. Eddie's basically being used, and Eddie Kingston will not take that lightly. If we get Eddie Kingston versus Samoa Joe or whatever through this, that's great. And honestly, Eddie kind of needed to get away from Hook. So I'm really happy about that development. What would I do? I mean, I think right now World's End is going to be... World's End is so up in the air of what you do. Do they just do Hangman versus Joe back again? How long is the Joe reign? Where does Swerve fit in? Does Swerve get the shot before Hangman? You don't know. And then MJF's still a question too. MJF's got that contract. When's he going to be back? People are thinking that Max will get the win back from when he lost the belt at full World's End in 2023 when he lost his reign. And while I'm not against that idea, I just think that has to be worked the right way. I feel like a good way to sell that would be Hangman and Swerve respectively and together running through the Ops, but then it's not that much time between now and Full Gear. I think Full Gear is the 27th, 28th next month. So it's kind of hard to really build that with Swerve and Hangman themselves to make that not seem too short term. But then, let's say, honestly, I don't want Joe to drop the belt at World's End. No, I think that's too short. I think you have Joe retain. And then, further on, I think you have Joe lose at either Double or Nothing. But then Double or Nothing... No, it's Revolution first, isn't it? Revolution and then Double or Nothing for the Owen. That could be interesting. But I think Joe shouldn't have a tiny reign. I don't think Joe will have the belt till All In. I think that's a solid guess. I think that's quite logical to make. But I think he's going to be... He's always entertaining. That goes without saying. And I think everything about it will be really fun. I think people are upset, obviously. But I think this is going to be really interesting. I really do. I think this is going to be... I think it's just going to be brutal. I feel like this is going to be like a pivotal... It's going to be pivotal for Hangman and Swerve, obviously. But I just think it's going to be a great sight to see that, like, those two teaming up and just wrecking house on the Ops. And, Eddie's going to have some involvement too. I think they might give Eddie the title shot at World's End or before. I think Eddie will be the first defense. I do. Just because it's kind of Eddie can afford the loss, even though it's sad to say that he can. It's not really believable, and Joe could just dominate him in that match. That works. And then, honestly, if you want to be smart about it, you could have, at that point, Mox going to get slimed out, which I'm going to talk about later, probably today. And Mox could team up with Eddie. That's how you build that team up. And, they could do what Edge and Christian essentially doing, where they're doing two ongoing stories at the same time by helping each other. That could work for Eddie. But I think as a team, Swerve and Hangman are probably they're not gonna go for gold. It's definitely not that route. They're gonna go for just Joe, essentially. Swerve's angle is gonna be interesting because he'll just want the belt. Hangman will want the belt back, but he'll obviously want revenge on Joe because the feud. I think the big question is, do the Elite get involved? I think that's entirely plausible. I think that's possible, and I'd like that. I feel like Swerve and Kenny have had a history of teaming up with each other in a Stadium Stampede, or Anarchy in the Arena, sorry. And obviously, all the Elite have got history with Hangman. Hangman and Swerve at this point will be developing that. The only ones who, and Swerve and the Bucks, obviously had a bit of a feud, obviously made them lose the EVP along with Ospreay. It feels like it's building up to a 5v5, and there's only 4 in the Ops. So I feel like there's someone left to add. And I mean, who do you really give the Ops at that point, right? Like, who else has kind of shown that teamwork with them? You know what I mean? And Eddie still fits in there too, so you could have a 6v6. You never know. I feel like this could be really interesting. I do. I think there's a lot of questions. It changes everything. I think that goes without saying. It really does change everything about the main event scene. I feel like, honestly, this kind of... It gives it a... I don't think the main event scene in AEW was a problem at all. I feel like it was kind of very... I think it was very shut off, and I kind of like that. Like, it wasn't really expanded enough, and I like that, but I see the complaint. I feel like it did, and this is a real shot on the arm that kind of expands it. Obviously, Swerve coming in is huge, and just... The question for me is, you've still got MJF. The Elite, in my opinion, will factor in, and then Swerve and Hangman's obviously the big questions. But then, I think you've got to ask yourself, for me, where do people like Claudio's probably going to get up there soon? I'm not against that at all. Jay White, when he comes back, I think, me personally, I think Jay White should be right in the main event scene. Point is, there's people around. Ospreay, when he comes back, will it be around when Ospreay returns? We don't know. This is really interesting because the Hangman reign's been basically cut off before anyone expected it to be, myself included. Where does it go? Where does it actually... How long is this reign going to be? What's it going to be like? Who's going to... There's everything's questionable. It's not like, for instance, if I had MJF win the belt now, where, okay, this isn't going to be like a super short-term reign, right? It's like you would have a bit of guess that, like, it'd probably go to All In. But then I thought that was going to happen with Hangman personally, unless MJF won it at All In, maybe for a World's End. So... I don't know. I think, honestly, a great call would be Ospreay to win it. But you don't want to really say... Not that there's anything wrong with Joe not having that long reign. But I feel like having Swerve and Hangman there kind of indicates that it won't be long. But, again, I could be wrong. We were wrong about Hangman. Who would I have win it? I mean... I think Hangman and Swerve are most likely going to be the two. But I think MJF definitely is the more likely. I think the big thing that's kind of changes my MJF thoughts on it is, anyone but MJF, is the 1 week advance you have to put in the contract to get the title match now. It's not like a Money in the Bank situation where as soon as it happens, the title match is there. You've got to put it in a week advance. And, that's fine. I just think for MJF, I hope there's a build there. Max could come back and face Joe straight away. The history's there, and it could be great. And honestly, the way I enjoy the work at the end of better than New Baby's story. I've made that quite clear. But I think the match itself wasn't bad. But if you get 100, MJF wasn't 100% right. So there you go. That's just more reason to do it. I would like Hangman to win that back. Or Swerve. I think either of those guys would be great. I think that could be a fun, short-term reign for Joe. Not too long. And then you could either get MJF versus Max, MJF versus Hangman for the belt, or even, in my opinion, more interesting, MJF versus Swerve for the belt. That could be ridiculously fun. But then again, there's so much that goes into it. MJF's whole return is a big talking point in terms of how does that go. So there's a lot of questions. If you had to put a gun to my head now and ask me who do I think wins the belt next, it probably is MJF. But out of those three, I'm more than happy. How long would I give this for Joe? I'd give it till Revolution. I think Revolution's a good call. I think that's a great call. I think you get at least one pay-per-view defense in. And people forget from January to Revolution, it's a bit of a gap, so it's still a decently lengthy reign. It's possibly longer than Hangman's. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped it at Grand Slam. And I think Grand Slam Australia is the start of next year, so I don't know if that could be a good call to drop it there. Wouldn't be against that, but anything's possible now. That's the big thing for me. Anything is possible, and it really feels like it. It's so exciting. But yeah, Joe is champ, and again, it's just exciting to see where it goes. Where do you think it'll go? Like yourself, how long do you think it'll be? Who do you think gets it, and where would you have Joe drop it, and how? And honestly, how would you play this all out? Because again, it's really interesting to talk about and really interesting to just think about, to be honest.